Our next session is the Joint Labor Management implementation of the Joint Statement, Making It Work for the Health and Safety of Firefighters. Before we start that, I wanted to mention, especially since we have many visitors from outside of the country, that in South Florida, around 3 o'clock or the 3:05, which is our area code here, we like to have a little cafecito. So we have some coffee that we will be passing around. It's Cuban espresso coffee. So if you don't mind a little heart palpitation, feel free to pick up a cup as it goes by. From our tradition to you all. Okay, so joining me on the stage are two folks that probably need no introduction. But first is President Billy McAllister of Local 1403. Since January of 2020, MDFR firefighter and captain for over 20 years, has served as the terrorism liaison officer, a structural collapse technician, and an amateur radio operator. He is joined by Chief Ray Jadallah, our new Miami-Dade County Fire Chief. He is a dedicated and distinguished leader with over 26 years of experience in public service. As Fire Chief, he leads the largest accredited full-service fire rescue department in the Southeast and the second largest in the nation. Please join me in welcoming my colleagues up to the stage. Chief Jadallah. Oh, you guys snuck up on me on the back.
We're already here. We're running on time.
Yes. And to moderate our session, please join me with Miami-Dade Fire and FCI liaison, Chris Pecori.
Ladies and gentlemen, just being the new rookie, I know where I'm supposed to sit. No joke, I know.
Welcome, everyone. I just want to say thank you to everyone here for all you do. The public considers us their heroes because we have their back. We consider you our heroes because you got our back. So just thank you. So I'm going to start off kind of with some questions. We're just going to bounce them between the two. I'm going to start, Billy. What are the current cultural norms for occupational exposure and reduction, and how do we move that needle?
So the job we do, we know is a dangerous one, and there's always the next thing we now know does us harm. In recent years, we've struggled with the idea that cancer in the fire service is something that is around, and we're not really sure what's happening and why it's occurring. And for far too long, it's been treated as something where it's the guy I work with. It's not the person. It's not me. It's the other guy. One of the things that are perhaps most concerning for us here at 1403 and with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue is that we've had over 600 members diagnosed with cancer. Our rate of cancer is extraordinary. So the idea that it's one guy or another guy, it starts to become so prevalent that it affects each one of us rather personally. So when it comes to changing the culture, we have to first identify that there's an issue, and then we have to figure out a strategy by which to change the hearts and minds of those we work with. And we all know, we've heard the jokes and such, it takes time to get firefighters to change their habits because, frankly, this is my opinion, we don't change our habits very quickly because we're trying to do the thing that's most effective and efficient to get a job done as fast as possible. And introducing change slows things down. So how do you move the needle? It's education, and that education comes from the department, it comes from the union. Health monitoring is a very important component of that, and perhaps most important, to inform firefighters on what changes should occur and how they should occur is our partnership with researchers, with all of you in the audience. And then finding how to stitch together the information we derive from health monitoring, and then from your advice and your technical expertise, labor and management has to come together and really strike out a direction and with diligence move in that direction.
So when was reducing exposures to contamination and carcinogens first a topic of conversation for you both?
Well, if I had to really think about it, legitimately, probably not until I was a captain. And, I definitely didn't get anything in regards to, information as a firefighter. As it had been mentioned earlier, 26, 27 years as a firefighter. I started off in Palm Beach County, started there for 4 years, then came here to Dade County. And, I know that wearing your gear that's dirty was a, badge of honor. I worked in some of the busiest battalions, but legitimate, concerns did not occur until I was a captain. And I say captain because if anyone from Miami-Dade, and I think even some agencies from South Florida, took the course that Keith Tyson put out, and it wasn't until then that it started resonating. And I could promise you, and actually I could swear to it, that it resonated because there was a number that really stood out for all 2,800 of us at Miami-Dade Fire, that almost 1/3 of the department, including retirees, had some form of cancer. And that number right there, just again, and that was back as a captain. And then from moving forward on, there was the Target Solutions that everybody loves, those courses. We have our own internal training, also training zones that's put together by our training division by Nick Margato. And then the next actual hands-on was when we started talking about how to start reducing the levels of cancer within the department. And we started with the Green Bucket program in 2018-19. And I was a part of it. They brought me in with my crew to actually do the video for the department. And just, if people know my history, they call me Captain Chaos because I just happen to be at every major incident. But soon after we left the training for the Green Bucket, the carcinogen reduction program, we pulled out of headquarters and we ran into our very first fire about 5 minutes after filming the video. And we actually put the Green Buckets to use. So it was, those are the two that really stand out as, for in regards to getting serious about the program.
I think that makes an important point too, because I know that his way of sort of leading the way and making that change was not with a heavy hand and not with a hammer. It wasn't mandating it, making it something subject to discipline the moment the things changed. There had to be a period of time to buy in, and the jokes and the things that firemen do when something changes were endured. And I can tell you that it's something that's become much more part of the culture and how we operate on fire scenes. When we leave, it's no longer walk over, drop our gear, and get a paper cup of water. It's now go through a corridor and decon and then go over to your truck and do the things you're supposed to do. That extra step is now a part of what we do on many of our scenes.
Excellent. What was each of your opinions on the biggest challenges to limiting exposure to carcinogens?
Yeah, I think that to solve these problems, and I think going back as a union president, we looked through this and saw that every so often there was a discussion about contamination reduction, changing bunker gear when it was soiled and things of that nature, going back to 1999, and that's just what I could find in the building. Without the people being involved, the right people being involved, a process that was stuck to, and enough gear on hand, it was certainly always bound to fail. So I think that the single most important thing that you can do is focus on all three of those things and have a plan that's durable, that accomplishes changing the hearts and minds of firefighters, ensuring there's a process that no matter if it's a house fire or the Covanta waste energy plant where there's hundreds of people potentially with a contaminated gear or such, the system is able to be resilient enough to continue functioning, and then just having enough on hand to allow for the exchange to occur.
Yeah, I would say the human element is the biggest factor, and no matter what policies you have in place, no matter what equipment, no matter what the amount of bunker gear you have in place, at the end of the day, it's human element in regards to ensuring that the personnel are aware of how this culture needs to change. And again, the numbers state that the culture needs to change. But again, to Billy's point, it's going to be the human element also, and that's going to be the change, the major factor in this game.
All right. Billy, can you talk about your department's members' struggles with cancer and the widespread issue that it's been?
Yes, I sort of mentioned it before. It's the thing that used to be just that affected the other guy you worked with, and it's become so prevalent that it's caused concern. I thought about this after we sort of prepped earlier, and I'll share a personal a point for you. I'm a second-generation fireman. My dad was a captain and headed up our investigations for nearly 2 decades. And thankfully, he's healthy, and he's enjoying his retirement to this day. But one of my childhood friends, many of you may know him because he's also a researcher now at UCLA, is Derek Irwin. And I feel a bit of a personal burden because he got excited for this profession because of my dad's involvement, because of my involvement. And he became an MDFR firefighter for a few years before he moved out to LA County. And his son was born with a 1 in 100 million congenital form of cancer that had to be removed from his spine upon birth. And you have to think that when there's several individuals in the training cadre at LA County, all that had this same birth defect, I feel a bit responsible for him having that incidental exposure. I mean, every one of us, I think, that have been on this job long enough know the frustration and the pain of being touched by this. So if you really sit down with any one of us that's been on the job long enough, they're going to tell you that they know somebody they thought was Superman, that would never get sick and would never succumb to something because they weren't mortal. And then you see somebody that was healthy and muscular and fit and looked like they could take on the world, and they're 93 pounds and they're days away from death. It's tough. It's tough.
So to both of you, in what ways did the department's relationship with the union help and/or hinder solving this problem?
Oh.
That's why I'm in the middle.
I'm going to need a union rep. Anybody? In regards to, working collaboratively, with the local, for those who are in government work, you have to understand, and you probably do, there is a certain threshold you can no longer cross, because remember, we do have elected leaders that we do have to report to, being in our position. I would have to say that where we are looking to get things done in regards at the state legislature with our elected leaders, this is where the local definitely comes in. And that good collaboration with our local, gets certain things passed, for sure. Now, hindrance, I wouldn't say there is hindrance. I truly believe at the end of the day, there is a certain goal that we both, envision. How we get to that goal, we may have different opinions on it. It's not to say that's wrong, but at the end, I wouldn't say that there's really hindrance. Everyone brings ideas to the table. At the end, we definitely have to take into consideration quite a few factors, from the ability to get certain equipment. Of course, we have our own, procurement issues, financial issues, but at the end, there is that same vision, that same end goal. I think it's just the different ideas that everyone brings to the table that may just cause some speed bumps, but definitely no hindrance.
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I'll just add that I think that at the end of the day, as long as there's mutual respect, it's finding the balance between a ruthlessly efficient system that responds as fast as possible to every scene and every emergency, and also understanding that those that respond to those scenes, they also have health and safety risks that need to be mitigated. So as long as we keep our eyes on the most important thing and understanding that we have a very important job to do for the benefit of the public, we usually arrive at something that didn't look like our idea in the union, and it didn't look quite like the idea that the department had, but in the middle of that intersection was a solution that protects the members and meets the needs of the public when they call for help.
Excellent. Ray, can you go talk to us a little bit about what the opportunities and challenges that being such a large department creates?
Well, the opportunities and challenges are probably the same, in regards to opportunities, just being such a large department with the resources capable, and, we've seen quite a bit of it on some of the large, time's up.
Okay.
And when I was 4 years old, my mom used to bring cookies, so I think our time is up, so.
One more.
So in regards to our opportunities and challenges, and again, just the sheer size of our department, gives us the opportunity to bring the resources, necessary to, get certain things done. Again, collaboration with even, outside of Local 1403 with, University of Miami, Sylvester, and networking. Now, challenges, we are a big department, and, to actually turn this cruise ship around, does take a little bit of time. But again, I believe that both are the same, just the sheer fact that size, of the department can bring both positive opportunities and some challenges.
Good. Let me just get one more, because I think it's pertinent to the crowd here. Billy, can you go over what steps should researchers take to enroll, engage, and most importantly, build relationships with firefighters?
So this is, I guess, is the takeaway. The single most important thing that researchers can understand about firefighters is that we're expected to respond and help when someone calls. It's not easy for us to ask for help from anybody. Each other, if we get turned around in a fire and kind of get lost for a minute, we aren't a group that tends to be willing to ask for help. On this subject, I can tell you, we're asking for your help as researchers, because you have the subject matter expertise and you have the ability to help us leverage change. That relationship is predicated on a very fragile trust. Us asking for help is not an easy thing to do, and because of the fragility of that trust, the things I can tell you are the single most important things that you have to return to frequently as you do your work, is to consider that the relationship is predicated on honesty and frequent conversation. Being able to reach out and tell firefighters in the moment there's something they should be concerned about is extraordinarily important. Having a dialogue with them is something that builds the relationship long term, because once a firefighter welcomes you into their family, once you become one of the members of the crew, the rate of growth in that relationship is exponential. The trust becomes unbounded, because at the end of the day, just like when Chris and I have worked together and when the chief and I worked together a while back, we trust each other with our lives. And in this case, we're entrusting you all to help us better inform ourselves, to educate each other, and to make sure that we make the next best decisions as union leadership and department leadership to protect us. It really is the way that not only do we protect one another, we protect those that work on other shifts, and most importantly, for me, it protects our families, because the things that we do come home with us. And it's something that when you're busy, and I know you have publication deadlines and peer-reviewed edits that need to be done, and there's a lot of pressure professionally, the single most important thing you need to do is just take a moment and say, wait, they're not lab rats. These guys need to hear from us on a regular basis, and that'll build the relationship. It'll pay off exponentially later. Dividends will continue to come in forever. No. I ran us over long enough. Yeah. Sorry, Alberto.
Thank you.